On a warm summer day, Emily Forrester, a bright-eyed 8-year-old with golden curls and a smile that could light up any room, was riding her bicycle around her family's quiet neighborhood. The pink bike, adorned with colorful streamers fluttering from the handlebars, was Emily's pride and joy. It was more than a toy. It was her passport to adventure, her companion in the endless explorations of childhood. Her small feet pumped steadily against the pedals as she circled the block again, the warm sun casting long shadows over the pavement. Birds chirped in the trees overhead, and the scent of fresh jasmine drifted on a gentle breeze. Emily's laughter bubbled up like a song, light and carefree. Inside the Forrester home, Laura Forrester was busy preparing lunch. The kitchen was a warm, comforting space, filled with familiar smells, freshly baked bread, cooling on the counter, simmering herbs in a pot on the stove. Laura's honey-blonde hair, streaked now with silver, was pulled back in a loose ponytail as she worked with practiced hands. She glanced out the window toward the backyard where Emily often played, smiling softly as she imagined her daughter's joyful energy. But as the minutes ticked by, the usual sounds of giggles and wheels spinning grew quiet. The comforting noises of summer afternoon gave way to an uneasy silence. Setting down her utensils, Laura stepped outside and called, "Emily?" Her voice was light at first, then edged with concern when there was no answer. She searched the yard, looked around the garden where Emily had planted daisies that spring, but there was no sign of her. Her heart began to race as she checked the front yard and then the neighbors' houses. Still no Emily. By nightfall, the quiet town of Cedarbrook Hollow was consumed by a frantic search. Police cars with flashing lights roamed the streets. Neighbors and volunteers scoured the nearby woods, and flyers bearing Emily's bright, smiling face were plastered on every street lamp and bulletin board. Laura stood at the edge of the search parties, her breath visible in the cool evening air, her heart a heavy stone of dread and hope. Every time she heard a shout or a rustle in the bushes, she spun around, desperate to catch a glimpse of her daughter. But the hours stretched on without any sign of Emily. The tiny pink bike that had once symbolized freedom and joy was now a haunting absence. For Laura, the loss was unbearable. The Forrester home became a mausoleum of memories. Emily's toys lay untouched, her laughter replaced by a crushing silence. Each room whispered of what had been: the tiny shoes by the door, the favorite blanket folded neatly on the bed, the faded drawings taped to the fridge. Her husband, once a pillar of support, crumbled beneath the weight of their shared sorrow. 6 months after Emily disappeared, their marriage shattered. He left for Seattle, carrying away a part of Laura's heart and leaving her alone to navigate the endless grief. Yet Laura refused to surrender to despair. She held on to the faintest glimmer of hope, convinced that someday, somehow, Emily would return. Cedarbrook Hollow was not the kind of town where children disappear. Nestled deep in the Pacific Northwest, it was a place where fog rolled through the winding, tree-lined roads like a ghostly river, wrapping the town in an ethereal cloak each morning. The community prided itself on safety and connection. Over the years, modest growth had brought new homes and an influx of visitors, especially as remote work made rural escapes popular. The surge of Airbnb rentals dotted the edges of town, offering peaceful retreats to city dwellers seeking solace in the forest. But despite the town's outward tranquility, beneath the surface was a current of fear and uncertainty. Emily's disappearance had shaken the community to its core. The quiet streets, once filled with children's laughter, were now shadowed by whispered questions and sleepless nights. Laura, however, remained steadfast. Each day she returned to work as a pastry chef at the Morning Roost Bakery, where the early morning hours offered brief respite from the pain. Kneading dough and shaping pastries became a form of therapy, a way to create something tangible, something sweet and good, when her life felt fractured and hollow. But no matter how many loaves she baked or how many smiles she greeted at the bakery, Laura's mind always returned to Emily, to the daughter she loved and lost. The years rolled on with no answers, no closure, yet deep within Laura, a mother's hope burned quietly, refusing to be extinguished. In the days after Emily Forrester disappeared, a heavy silence settled over the Forrester home, a silence that seemed to echo through every room, lingering long after the sun had set. For Laura, the world she once knew fractured into pieces too painful to mend. The vibrant laughter that once filled the halls had vanished, replaced by an endless void that swallowed light and hope alike. The community of Cedarbrook Hollow rallied initially, their concern palpable and immediate. Flyers with Emily's smiling face appeared on every street corner and shop window, their bright colors a stark contrast to the somber reality. Neighbors organized search parties, combing through the dense forests and winding trails that surrounded the town. Police officers worked tirelessly, following every lead, every whisper, every hint that could bring Emily home. But as the weeks turned into months, the urgency waned, leads dried up, the search parties grew smaller, the media attention faded, leaving behind a quiet town still burdened by grief, but reluctant to confront the unresolved nightmare. Within the Forrester household, Laura's grief took on a life of its own. Every corner bore the imprint of Emily's absence. The tiny shoes by the door no longer moved, the pink bicycle in the garage stood unused and gathering dust, and the walls seemed to whisper memories of a life paused. Laura moved through the rooms like a ghost, her mind replaying the last moments she saw her daughter. Her husband, once a steady partner, struggled under the weight of their shared sorrow. The pain fractured their marriage, and blame poisoned their once solid bond. "You should have been watching her," he said bitterly one night, his voice heavy with regret and anger. Those words cut Laura to the core, deepening her isolation and despair. 6 months later, he left, retreating to Seattle and leaving Laura to face the crushing silence alone. But amidst the darkness, Laura clung to a fragile hope. She refused to let the memories of Emily fade, instead choosing to carry them like a lantern against the night. She spent hours walking the trails where Emily had played, visiting the park swings that once creaked beneath her daughter's laughter, and sitting quietly beneath the towering cedars that had witnessed her childhood. Work at the Morning Roost Bakery became a lifeline. The early mornings, long before the town awoke, offered a sanctuary where Laura could lose herself in the simple rhythmic tasks of baking. Kneading dough, measuring ingredients, and shaping delicate pastries allowed her to create something good and real amidst the chaos of law. Yet even in those moments of calm, the ache of Emily's absence was never far away. The bakery's warm ovens held no magic strong enough to mend a broken heart. Cedarbrook Hollow itself seemed to hold its breath. The morning fog that rolled through the trees like a living thing became a symbol of the town's collective grief, shrouding the familiar in mystery and sorrow. New families moved in, and the edges of the town stretched outward with new developments and Airbnb rental. But beneath the surface, a quiet fear persisted, a vigilance born of loss. Parents watched their children more closely now, the carefree days of childhood replaced by careful supervision and whispered warnings. The disappearance of Emily had changed everything. Laura found solace and strength in the online support groups that connected her to other parents who understood the unbearable weight of a missing child. Through shared stories and messages of hope, she built a fragile community that spanned the miles. But the passage of time did little to ease the rawness of her loss. Each year that passed without answers deepened the wound, and yet deep inside a small spark of hope refused to die. Then, 12 years after that summer day when Emily vanished, that hope was reignited in the most unexpected way. The afternoon sun hung low in the sky as Laura Forrester pulled into her driveway, a daily ritual that had become both a comfort and a torment. It was exactly 3:07, the same time she had come home every weekday for years, a rhythm now etched into her life like a metronome keeping pace with her grief. The warm spring air carried a hint of pine and freshly turned earth, scents that once brought peace, but now stirred painful memory. Laura's honey blonde hair, streaked with silver from years of sorrow, caught the sunlight as she opened the door of her aging car. She gathered her pastry utensil box and the black and white checkered uniform she wore at the Morning Roost Bakery, where she had worked since Emily disappeared. The bakery had become her refuge, a place where early mornings filled with the scent of fresh bread gave her brief moments of escape from a life overshadowed by loss. The house was silent as always. The emptiness was tangible, pressing in around her as she set down her belongings and hung her uniform on the kitchen chair. Each step she took echoed through the rooms, spaces frozen in time since the day Emily vanished. Just as she was about to head upstairs for a shower, the shrill ring of her phone pierced the quiet. The screen flashed a name she hadn't seen in years: Detective Dean Harland. Her heart leapt and then tightened with a mixture of hope and fear as she answered. "Miss Forrester." The detective's voice was deeper, rougher than she remembered, touched by the years since they last spoke. "Something's come up related to Emily's case. It's important. Can I come see you?" "Of course," Laura replied, barely able to steady her voice. "Please, come." Within minutes, a patrol car pulled up outside. Laura waited by the door, her mind racing with possibilities. Had they found Emily? Was this the break she had prayed for? Detective Harland stepped onto the porch, his dark hair now flecked with gray, his face lined with exhaustion and years of unanswered questions. He nodded at Laura, his eyes steady and serious. "Laura," he said quietly, "we found something." Her breath caught, "What is Emily's bicycle?" he said. The words struck her like a thunderclap. Emily's pink bike, the one she had last seen on that warm summer day 12 years ago, had been found buried beneath the concrete floor of a garage at an Airbnb rental property just outside town. Laura's mind spun as Detective Harland explained. The bike had been discovered during renovations. Workers breaking up the concrete floor uncovered it, deliberately hidden, long buried beneath years of dust and silence. "I have to see it," Laura said, her voice trembling. Detective Harland nodded, and together they drove through the familiar streets, past homes and shops, along winding roads framed by towering cedars. When they arrived at the property, Laura's stomach tightened. This was a place she had passed countless times without suspecting the secrets it held. The driveway was busy with police officers and forensic specialists in white suits. Yellow crime scene tape cordoned off the garage, now a hive of activity. Ryan Johnson, the renovation foreman, greeted them. "We were working on plumbing when we broke through the concrete. That's when we found it buried deep under the floor." Laura stepped toward the exposed pit in the garage floor, the broken concrete revealing the small cavity where the bike lay. The pink paint was chipped and faded, the white basket cracked and grimy, but the purple and pink streamers still clung to the handlebars. Emily's unmistakable touch. "That's hers," Laura whispered, tears stinging her eyes. "That's Emily's bike." Detective Harland placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "We're running forensic tests, fingerprints, DNA, but after so many years it's uncertain what we'll find." As forensic officers began their meticulous work, 2 police officers arrived escorting a man, Ernest Malellery, the property caretaker. He looked older than Laura expected, with thinning gray hair and a nervous demeanor that betrayed his unease. Ernest answered questions about the property owner, Vance Holloway, who lived in Switzerland, and entrusted him with managing the rental. Ernest claimed no knowledge of the bike or its burial, stating the garage floor had never been renovated during his tenure, but the discovery had opened a door to answers that had long seemed out of reach. Laura felt a cautious spark of hope ignite within her, a fragile flame fed by the tangible proof of her daughter's connection to this place. The journey to the truth was far from over, but for the first time in over a decade, it felt possible. As dusk settled over Cedar Brook Hollow, the mist began to curl through the trees once more, wrapping the town in a familiar veil. Inside Laura, a light had been rekindled. The morning mist still clung to the towering cedars of Cedar Brook Hollow. As Laura Forrester and Detective Dean Harland arrived at the Airbnb property once again, the weight of the previous day's discovery pressing heavily on their minds, the small town's tranquility had been shattered by the unexpected unearthing of Emily's bicycle, buried beneath concrete in the garage, a silent witness to secrets hidden for over a decade. The air was thick with anticipation and unease as forensic teams dressed in white suits meticulously documented the scene. Yellow crime scene tape cordoned off the area, shimmering in the soft light filtering through the dense trees. The scent of damp earth mixed with fresh pine and the faint aroma of freshly poured concrete created an eerie backdrop for what was unfolding. Ryan Johnson, the renovation foreman who had made the grim discovery, stood by the broken concrete pit, his face etched with fatigue and disbelief. "We were working on new plumbing when the concrete gave way," he explained, his voice low and steady. "At first we thought it was just a crack, but then we saw it. Something buried there, carefully hidden. The bike was deep under the floor, definitely placed there intentionally." Laura's breath caught as she approached the pit. The small rusted frame of a pink bicycle lay crumpled beneath a thin layer of dirt and concrete dust. The white plastic basket was cracked, but the purple and pink streamers on the handlebars, tattered yet unmistakable, whispered of a child's love and innocence frozen in time. "That's hers," Laura murmured, her voice trembling. "That's Emily's bike." Detective Harland placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We're working with the forensic team now, trying to find any clues, fingerprints, DNA, anything that might tell us who buried it." The discovery was a breakthrough, yet it raised countless new questions. Who had hidden the bike? Why here? And how had it remained undiscovered for 12 years beneath a concrete floor? The tension in the air thickened as 2 uniformed officers approached, escorting a man whose nervous eyes flickered between Laura and the investigators. Ernest Malellery, the property caretaker, had managed the Airbnb rental for nearly a decade, overseeing guests and upkeep, yet now he found himself under intense scrutiny. Detective Harland introduced Laura to Ernest. "This is Laura Forrester, Emily's mother," he said. "We need to ask you some questions about this property and your role here." Ernest swallowed hard, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know anything about the bike. I've been caretaker for 10 years. The floor hasn't been touched during that time." Laura observed Ernest carefully. His jittery movements, the way his eyes darted away from hers, there was a tension there she couldn't ignore. We'll need access to guest records, maintenance logs, anyone who might have had access to the garage, Detective Harlan said firmly. This wasn't just forgotten debris. It was buried. Ernest nodded, hands trembling slightly. I'll provide everything you need. Meanwhile, investigators worked to establish a timeline. The property owner, Vance Holloway, was contacted over. He had moved to Switzerland years ago but kept ownership of the house. His cooperation would be critical. As the days stretched on, Laura found herself torn between hope and fear. The bicycle was proof, a connection to her daughter, but it also meant someone had deliberately hidden a piece of her past. The question lingered. Who? Back at her home, Laura sat by the window watching the mist roll through the tree. The town she had known all her life now felt like a place of secrets and shadows, but beneath it all a fierce determination burned. She would uncover the truth. The shadows would not hold her daughter for. The quiet of Laura Forrester's home was shattered once again, not by a ringing phone or a knock at the door, but by a cruel and sinister intrusion that felt as though the shadows had taken form to torment her. It came in the form of a private message, one so chilling that it shook Laura to her core and reopened wounds she had fought so long to keep closed. For years Laura had found some solace in an online community of parents whose children had gone missing, an unlikely sanctuary where shared grief became a fragile bridge to hope and understanding. She frequented the missing children's support community, a place that helped her navigate the stormy sea of loss with others who understood the unspoken agony. It was there, late one night after posting updates about the discovery of Emily's bicycle, that the message appeared. At first glance, it was just an image, a twisted mockery of her daughter's memory, a photograph of Emily on her beloved pink bike, but her smiling face had been grotesquely altered, replaced with the head of a dead pig crudely superimposed onto the body. Beneath it a grainy, disturbing video played, a dark, poorly lit clip showing the butchering of a pig's head, wrapped and handled with chilling detachment. The accompanying text was even more cruel. Your daughter's as dead as this pig. Just accept it and live with. Laura's hands trembled as she stared at the screen, disbelief giving way to nausea and overwhelming fear. The message wasn't just a threat. It was a sinister declaration meant to crush her fragile hope, to silence her quest for truth. She slammed her laptop shut and rushed to the bathroom, barely making it before she vomited, the bile burning her throat as her body rejected the horror. But Laura was not so easily broken. After gathering herself, she reopened the computer and documented the message, taking screenshots and copying the video link. She sent everything to Detective Harlan and shared a detailed post with the forum, asking for help to identify the sender. As she sifted through the responses, some offering technical analysis, others condemning the cruelty, her phone rang. It was Detective Harlan. I saw what you sent me, he said gravely. When did you receive this? Just now, Laura replied. It came immediately after I posted the update about the bike. Detective Harlan's voice was steady but tense. Our tech team is analyzing the video and tracing the account. One thing caught my eye. The trees visible in the background look like European alpine evergreens, not the species native to Cedarbrook Hollow. Laura's heart skipped. Could it be the property owner? He lives in Switzerland, right? It's possible, Harlan admitted, but it could also be a cruel troll. We can't rule anything out yet. The message was a stark reminder that Laura's journey was far from over, and that someone dangerous was watching her, waiting for a moment to strike. Meanwhile, the investigation pressed on. The police continued to contact guests who had stayed at the Airbnb, prioritizing long-term visitors and those who might have been around when Emily disappeared. The owner, Vance Holloway, was cooperating fully, though he insisted he had no knowledge of the hidden bicycle or the crimes now surfacing. Laura's nights became restless, haunted by the chilling message and the looming questions about the caretaker, Ernest Mallow. His nervous behavior during questioning, combined with the mounting evidence, painted a picture that unsettled her deeply. One evening, Laura decided to visit the property herself, hoping to glean something missed by the official investigation. The house stood silent beneath the looming trees, the mist curling through the branches like silent watchers. She noticed a light flickering inside the window, odd for a property under police investigation and supposed to be vacant. Her instincts told her something was wrong. Stepping closer, she caught movement, a shadowy figure hurriedly carrying a box to a white van parked near the side of the house. It was Ernest. Heart pounding, Laura watched as he loaded items into the van, his every movement tense and furtive. When he heard her footsteps, he froze, turning sharply. Who's there? He demanded, voice tight. It's Laura Forrester, she said firmly, Emily's mother. Ernest's face betrayed his surprise, then hardened as he quickly explained that he was retrieving documents for the police investigation, that he had permission from the owner. But Laura sensed the lies beneath his words. His eyes darted nervously, his voice rushed and uneven. She knew then that Ernest was hiding something far darker than he admitted, and that the truth was closer than she ever feared. The darkness of the early morning wrapped Cedarbrook Hollow in a thick blanket of quiet, broken only by the distant hoot of an owl and the gentle rustle of leaves. stirred by a cool breeze. For most of the town's residents, the world was asleep, oblivious to the unfolding drama that was about to change everything. But Laura Forrester was wide awake, haunted by the unsettling sight of lights flickering in the supposedly vacant Airbnb property and Ernest Malalier's hurried movements. She couldn't shake the gnawing suspicion that something sinister was afoot. With her heart pounding, Laura decided to investigate further. She slipped quietly into her car, the engine's hum a whisper in the pre-dawn stillness. As she approached the property on Cedar Ridge Road, the glow of a single light flickered through the trees, a beacon in the night she couldn't ignore. Parking a short distance away, Laura stayed low, watching through the shadows. Ernest emerged from the house, pushing a heavy metal burn barrel toward his white van. The sharp scent of smoke wafted faintly on the cool air. She realized with a sinking feeling that he was burning something meant to disappear without a trace. Her breath caught as Ernest struggled to load the barrel into the van, glancing nervously around as if fearing discovery. He returned to the house, only to come out again wheeling a red industrial trolley, its wheels clattering softly against the gravel driveway. With laborious effort, he transferred heavy objects from the trolley into the van's open doors. Laura's mind raced. What was he trying to hide? What had been so important that it needed to be destroyed under cover of darkness? Fighting the impulse to confront him directly, Laura kept her distance, her instincts torn between caution and urgency. She pulled out her phone and dialed Detective Harland, whispering the details despite the patchy signal. Ernest is loading a burn barrel and heavy items into his van. He's acting suspicious, she said. Stay safe, Harland warned. Don't engage. Officers are Ernest started the engine, and as he drove away down Cedar Ridge Road, Laura followed at a careful distance, her eyes fixed on his taillights disappearing into the forest. The road wound through dense trees, the headlights cutting arcs through them. Finally, Ernest turned onto a narrow cul-de-sac, Whispering Pines Lane, a secluded cluster of houses hidden by towering evergreen. Laura parked discreetly at the edge of the woods, and watched as Ernest unloaded the burn barrel and trolley at a weathered blue house, disappearing inside for long minutes. When he emerged again, he loaded more heavy items into his van, the effort evident in his strained movement. Despite the creeping fear, Laura felt a surge of determination. This was no longer just a property caretaker carrying out his duties. It was a man hiding something terrifying. She called Detective Harland again, describing the location and the unusual activity. The detective's voice was calm but urgent. Leave the area now, Laura. Officers are on their way, but it's not safe for you to be here. Reluctantly, Laura started to drive away, but her eyes stayed fixed on the house. Ernest's behavior was far from normal. It was the behavior of a man desperate to bury the past. Soon police cruisers arrived, lights flashing softly in the growing dawn. Officers approached Ernest's van cautiously, weapons drawn, commanding him to step. Ernest complied slowly, his face a mask of resignation and rage. His words when he spoke chilled Laura to the bone. You should have accepted it, he spat. She's dead to me. She would have been dead to you too, if you hadn't interfered. The officers handcuffed him, and began searching the van. Behind the open rear doors, Laura glimpsed black body bags being carefully unloaded, their grim contents stirring a wave of horror. Paramedics rushed to tend the occupants, 3 young women, sedated but alive. One was unmistakably Emily. As the ambulance doors closed, sealing Emily's long journey home, Laura held her daughter's hand, a silent promise whispered through tears. I never gave up. I never stopped looking. The nightmare of 12 years was ending, but a new chapter of healing and justice was just beginning.